Hey, what's up everyone? My name's Chris Winter and today I'm going to do an in-depth review and comparison between two very popular entry-level DSLRs. Firstly, the relatively new Canon T6 and also the brand new Nikon D3400. Now if you haven't done it yet, make sure to subscribe as I'm going to be giving away either a Nikon D3400 or a Canon T6 to a subscriber, so hit that subscribe button to enter. And guys, if you haven't seen it yet, definitely make sure to check out my brand new list, the top 10 best beginner DSLR cameras. Now both of these cameras make it, but they don't come in at number one. So if you want to see what does come in at number one, I'll put a link in the description box below under this video and you can take a look. But anyway, let's compare these two fantastic beginner level cameras. So I want to start off this comparison by taking a look at the build quality and features of both of these cameras. Now in comparison to larger DSLRs like the Canon 80D and the Nikon D7200, the Canon T6 and Nikon D3400 are actually pretty small. It's actually pretty incredible just how light manufacturers are able to make DSLRs these days. And to me, that's a good thing because generally the lighter the camera is, the more likely you are to go out and take lots of photos and become a better photographer. Now in terms of physical size, the T6 is a slightly bigger camera. So if you are really looking for a small travel camera, the D3400 is probably the way to go. But in reality, the Canon T6 is only 40 grams heavier than the Nikon D3400, so it's not a huge difference. Now both of these cameras have pretty basic and easy to understand dials at the top, with all the beginner modes you'd expect. But the good thing is that they also both have full manual control as well for when you want to get a little bit more professional. Now one thing to note on the Nikon D3400 with the kit lens, when you want to use it, you actually have to press this button in and then rotate it before you can actually take a photo. Now it's not a big problem once you get used to it, but it can slow you down sometimes. But overall, both of these cameras are very small and portable, and to me, they're in that nice sweet spot for a beginner-sized DSLR. Now guys, I've also got my hands on the Nikon D3300, so if you'd like me to do a comparison between the D3300 and the D3400, let me know by leaving a thumbs up on this video. So let's turn these cameras around now and take a look at the LCD screens on the back. Overall, both of these cameras have good LCD screens, but they're both missing a few features that I would have liked to have seen. And funnily enough, they both actually have the exact same resolution screens coming in at 921,600 dots. And so you'd expect they're both really quite sharp. I did, however, find that the Nikon screen was slightly easier to see outdoors in bright sunlight. So if you are going to be shooting a lot outdoors using the LCD screen, the Nikon's probably going to be a better bet for you. Now, unfortunately, both of these cameras are missing articulating screens, which is disappointing, especially if you're making videos. They're both also missing touchscreens, which is a real pity, especially for a beginner's camera. But one good thing is that they both do have nice dials on the right here, especially on the Canon. I do like the dials on the Canon, so it's quite easy to use anyway. So overall, both cameras have nice LCD screens with a few trade-offs, of course. But if I was to pick a winner, I'd say that the Nikon D3400s is slightly nicer. By the way, guys, let me know in the comments below which brand you think's better, Canon or Nikon. I'll be interested to see, and I'll take a look at your comments down below. So I quickly want to talk about the menus on both the Nikon D3400 and the Canon T6. Now, if you're used to using either the Canon system or the Nikon system, you'll feel right at home in both of these menus. Now they're not super in depth, so for beginners, they're not going to scare you off. But if you do go into manual settings, you do have a few more features. Both menus are good and easy enough to understand, and to be totally honest, you'll probably prefer the menu system that you're more used to. By the way, guys, if you haven't seen it yet, definitely make sure to check out my top 10 list of the best beginner DSLRs. Like I said, both of these cameras make it, but they don't come in at number one. So if you want to check it out, the link will be in the description box below under this video. So both Canon and Nikon upgraded these cameras with a few new features, including wireless integration. So on one hand, we've got the Nikon, which has its SnapBridge system, and Canon uses its Canon Camera Connect app. You know, this is great if you want to upload your nice photos that you've taken with your DSLR to places like Instagram and Facebook. Overall, both worked really quite well, although I would say Nikon's system is slightly easy to set up. So it's definitely a nice feature though, overall, to have in both of these cameras. So let's talk about video now. So both the Canon T6 and the Nikon D3400 can shoot in 1080p, which for most people will be great. Now they don't shoot in 4K, but you know what, I wouldn't expect that in a budget DSLR. And in a way, I think it's good that they don't, as it means the file sizes won't be huge. Now one definite advantage of the Nikon D3400 is that it can shoot in 60 frames per second. Now for action shots or when you want to use some slow motion, that can be a really good thing. Now I wouldn't shoot with it all the time, but having that in your arsenal is a definite bonus for the D3400. In terms of color reproduction, I did find that the Canon did have nicer colors, but again, that might come down to personal preference. Now, one thing that I was disappointed about on the Nikon D3400 is that they've removed the microphone jack, which they had in the D3300. Look, most people won't actually use the microphone jack, but for all the budding cinematographers out there, the ones who want to learn to take really good video and also record some really good sound, that's a bit of a pity. The T6 doesn't have one either, which again is disappointing, but to be fair, both of the onboard mics will be good enough for day-to-day videos. So overall, both cameras do shoot video really quite well, but if you do want to get 60 frames per second, go for the Nikon D3400. Now quickly I wanted to talk about the battery life on both of these cameras because the Nikon D3400's improved battery life really did impress me a lot. So Nikon recently increased its battery life to a pretty impressive 1200 shots. Now compare that to Canon's 500 shots and it's really quite a big difference and something to definitely consider if you like to take a lot of photos, especially if you like to travel light without a whole lot of batteries. So overall, both the Nikon D3400 and the Canon T6 are fantastic beginner cameras, but if I was to choose a winner, I probably would choose the Nikon D3400 because I think it's slightly ahead of the game compared to the T6 in quite a few features. So let's talk about the burst mode of both of these cameras. Now the Nikon D3400 can shoot a pretty impressive 5 frames per second compared to just 3 frames per second on the Canon T6. Now in practice that's not a huge difference, but if you do like to take a lot of shots of say sports or wildlife, you'll definitely want to go for the Nikon D3400. In terms of actual autofocus performance, I found them to both be pretty quick, although again the Nikon was slightly snappier and more consistent. The Canon though was still very impressive for a beginner DSLR. So overall, both the Nikon D3400 and the Canon T6 are fantastic beginner cameras, but if I was to choose a winner, I probably would choose the Nikon D3400 because I think it's slightly ahead of the game compared to the T6 in quite a few features. So guys, if you haven't done it yet, definitely make sure to subscribe to go into the draw to win either a Nikon D3400 or a Canon T6, and definitely make sure to check out my top 10 list of the best beginner DSLR cameras. That list will be in the description box below under this video, and you can take a look at it. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. I'll see you next time. Bye.